Hi, I'm Andrew Dew, and welcome to the presentation for Transparent Budget Decisions. Our group created a personal finance tracker for our project. The inspiration for this project came from my wife after she suggested that a web application that would not only track but forecast future monthly expenses would be beneficial for her. That became the basis of our project. I'd now like to introduce you to our team, which consists of Mike Durrell, Saul Alvarez, Jose Sandoval, George Ayala, Weston Kelly, and myself. I will now be followed by Weston Kelly.
Hi, my name is Weston Kelly, and I'm going to talk to you about the planning and collaboration process for the project. Some of the first steps that we took were to limit scope by utilizing methods we learned from the recent Agile workshop. We created a whiteboard, as seen here, of potential features and then categorized them into must-have, should-have, could-have, and won't-have based on our vision of the minimum viable product, or MVP. Then if these features were met with time still remaining before the deadline, we could explore stretch goals beyond MVP. Each feature was broken down into a user story to essentially determine what that looks like from the user's perspective and what the success criteria looks like, meaning that the feature is finished. Before we started writing any code, the development tasks were split up based on a discussion of each member's strengths and interests, such as front-end, back-end, or specific features. Once actual coding began, we used Slack, Zoom, and GitHub to collaborate seamlessly. It was a learning process to implement and follow best practices for version control and using feature branches to limit merge conflicts or introduction of bugs. Code was written sometimes individually and other times in pair programming sessions using VS Code Live Share or screen sharing on Zoom. Our daily routine included morning stand-ups to assess progress or blockers and code demos to show features and functionality to the rest of the team. With that, we were able to reach MVP with some time to spare. I'll now hand it off to Jose for a walkthrough of some of the key features of the application.
Hello, my name is Jose, and I'll be walking you through the entrance to our web app and the login process. Upon entering our page, if I go ahead and refresh, you will notice that we will be greeted with the TBD logo and then presented with our two options. We wanted to keep this simple and follow the design pattern of less is more, provide simplified paths without overwhelming users with an abundance of options. This kind of ties in with our mission statement, as you can see there, breaking the stigma that focusing on your money is difficult. So we will go ahead and check out the About page. As we enter, we follow through with the same design, keeping distractions away, no buttons, nav bars, or anything of those sorts. We just provide a glimpse into the top features that we have, which one is our calendar. That's very interactive, provides a lot of data, transactions, and events. And then we go down to mentioning the tables, graphs, all things rows and columns. And lastly, our budgets data, which is a way to track and visualize the remaining portion of your set budgets and what you've used throughout. Once we are ready, we can click on any one of these and sign up today to enter the login/user register page. If you're a new user, you can definitely enter this way, or if you're a returning user, you can come in and log back in. The use of Google for a return use or a register makes it seamlessly to just enter your current information and not have to recreate an account. And just like that, we are landing on our dashboard page where Saul and George will take over.
This is our dashboard. On our dashboard, we can do multiple things to include adding new accounts. In this case, let's say we want to add an account for college savings. Next, we can manage our accounts. We can see all the previous accounts we've made. We can also delete them if they are no longer needed. We also have adding transactions. We can always add a transaction to whatever account we'd like. We can select a budget. In this case, we'll leave it blank. We can give it a name. Let's say we made a payment. We can also give it an amount. We put about $500 in there, and then select a date. We'll go ahead and choose today's date. Next, we can choose whether it's a deposit or a withdrawal. And lastly, you can select whether it's a monthly recurring charge or not. Now we can see our college savings account has been created and funds have been allocated. Next, we'll take a look at our budgets. To create a budget, all you need is a name and the amount you want to give it. After that, you can take a look at your budgets. You can always view them, see how much you gave up, and how much you've currently spent from the budget. Then you can see the remainder. You can always update it or delete it. And lastly, we'll take a look at our monthly transactions. These transactions happen monthly, so you can always update them or delete them as needed. Next, you'll take a look at our tables, our calendar, and our line graphs.
Hello, my name is George, and I'm going to be going over the interactive calendar and line charts. As you can see right now, we have our calendar right here, in which you can change the years and the months. And everything's color-coded depending on whether it's a deposit or withdrawal. So let's go ahead and click on May 1st. Right now we get a little window that displays the date, displays the transaction name, and transaction amount. Alright, let's scroll down. And right now we have our budgets, groceries, summer, and bills. We have our accounts down here. Let's go ahead and click on debit account. Alright, we got our line chart, which you can interact with. Right now it has the account name, the transaction date, and transaction amount. Here's our transactions. Let's go ahead and make a update. Let's say rent is due on the 10th. Let's update this, and the line chart is going to make the change. Let's go ahead and delete landscaping. It changes as we go. Alright, that concludes my portion.
Hi, my name is Mike Durrell, and I'll be walking you through the Meet the Team and Education pages. Here on the Meet the Team page, this feature was pretty fun to build. We took all of our images and rendered 80s Wall Street bankers in ChatGPT and did a little bio. So TBD, helping you hit your financial targets. Well, that was fun. So now let's move on to the education page. Here in the education page, you can look over various suggestions. What is good debt, bad debt? Here are a few pre-populated ones. And then we have this built up with ChatGPT to allow us to ask various other questions. Here's just an example of the functionality. All right, well, I'm going to hand it back to Andrew.
Our project uses a Vite React.js front-end scaffolding, along with a Firestore Firebase database. Front-end styling was accomplished using Tailwind CSS in conjunction with ShadCN in React Bootstrap. The imports for our dashboard include LineChart.js along with React Calendar. Lastly, our education page chatbot is powered by the OpenAI API. Some of the challenges we faced along the way were the real-time update of data and features across our dashboard. When a user would add a transaction or update a transaction, such as a date or amount, that data need to be spread across multiple components, including the calendar, line chart, and integrated transactions list. Secondly, learning the NoSQL document style database of Firestore was challenging in the beginning of our project. And lastly, limiting the database requests and instead sharing the data from the dashboard across the components was one of the last challenges we faced. Some of our future goals include incorporating Plaid's API to integrate real-time user banking information so that the user would not have to manually input transactions. And secondly, customizing the OpenAI chatbot with user data to more tailor responses for each independent user. Our current project is hosted at the site on the screen. If you believe you would benefit from the project or would just like to try it out, please go to the address listed. Thank you. This concludes our presentation.
All right, thank you so much, TBD. Again, that's Transparent Budget Decisions by Andrew, Wes, George, Michael, Jose, and Saul. And it looks like we have a question from YouTube here. We have super cool UI designed. Specifically, how did you all make the Wall Street Bank bio UI design feature of the chamber turning?
Okay, I'll handle that one. So basically, I've found an image of a cylinder, and then I set that up, and I used transform to get it to rotate 60 degrees. And then each of the individual pictures, I just took our actual pictures and put them into ChatGPT with the prompt that I wanted Winchester shirts and suspenders for an 80s Wall Street banker. And then each image was set at an offset degree and an X distance away from the center. And then I used state so that every time you clicked on it, it would trigger the audio file for the cha-ching. And then it was rotating the cylinder at the same time that the picture's relative position was rotating by 60 degrees. But then it also would offset the rotation of the picture so that everyone would remain upright. And then there was conditional rendering that as soon as it was at the top of the cylinder, it would conditionally render green. And then the picture associated with the given team member would conditionally render a description of them.
That sounds great. So correct me if I'm wrong, are you saying that you utilize essentially just basic JavaScript functions with CSS to be able to create that animation working? Where you manipulate.
Yes. So it was all captured in one class for the cylinder with the pictures, and then the cylinder had a CSS class, and then and then the images had a default class. But then I created some extra classes that allowed me to change the I believe it was the translate X, because the cylinder image wasn't completely symmetrical. So in order to align everything into the various chambers, I basically had to custom tweak each individual image at a slightly different angle, as well as distance from the center to center it up. But it was all JavaScript using state and then CSS classes.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mike. All right, the next question we have is, would you recommend a NoSQL database for future projects or return to a database like Postgres?
I'll take that one. I think there are pros and cons to both a NoSQL style database and also like a relational database like PostgreSQL. Honestly, I almost prefer Postgres because of the ability to validate data and clean data as it goes into the database with your validators and serializers. Versus when you're using the NoSQL database, a lot of that work is done on the front end prior to entering in the data. So you have to develop a lot of conditionals for your program before the data goes into it. So there's a lot of work that's done prior to actually entering your data into the database that I think could be avoided if you use a Postgres style database. But I think it would really depend on what the project is next time and what data is being stored. I think it would be a little easier if we were to do this again, to do a Postgres style database for all the transactions, to be able to more easily manipulate the data without having to use so much work on the front end through JavaScript.
All right, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. Does anyone else have any other questions for TBD? All right. When it comes to those charts that you guys created and displayed there, how how was the experience behind creating those charts? Were those also created through pure JavaScript and CSS, or did you guys use some sort of external library for that? I believe you guys did a mention of that during your presentation. Can you talk more about it?
Yes, I'll take this one. So in terms of the charts, we use chart.js. We use that library to handle pretty much the line charts, make it interactive, and with the animation as well. In terms of that, that was pretty basic once you like read through the documentation. But for the calendar was a little bit more tricky because there wasn't much to the documentation, and you kind of had to. They gave you more freedom to actually make adjustments to that.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, George. Again, that was TBD by Andrew, Wes, George, Michael, Jose, and Saul.